Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nello Reads channel. Our first malicious compliance story of the day comes from Nice and Odd. We're going to court? Okay. The setting, United States, northern neck of Virginia. The situation, bought land and built a house on it. The story. Back when my wife and I were much more newlywed than we are now, we hired ourselves an architect and went whole hog on having our cozy little dream home designed. While this was being done, we went shopping around for a parcel of land on which to have it built, which went quickly and easily, and we even got a pretty nice deal on a half-acre lot that was just far enough back in the sticks for us to be happy, but close enough to our jobs that it wasn't much of a commute. Best part of all? No homeowners association. There weren't any active back in that area because point blank, it was full of poor people back there. Dirt poor country types and working poor wage slave types. We made very sure with our lawyer that no previous owner had ever had the title amended to allow for any HOA nonsense as well, because that's a thing some real estate developers like to do. They'll buy up a property, get the title amended to force the membership of that property into a local HOA that they usually operate or are in cahoots with those that do, and then resell it with that as a new requirement for any prospective buyer to automatically agree to when they sign the title. Fast forward to August of 2019. COVID was just around the corner, but nobody knew that yet. Everything was normal out in those parts, and my wife and I had since moved into a different location, but retained that property as one of our various rentals. It was our dream home for several years, and we loved that place. Moving was tough. It was a good neighborhood out there, and folks were very welcoming. Then, a company that's totally not named Ryan Homes or anything even slightly similar came in and spent some years buying everything up back there. They were pressuring folks into selling, which worked out for them only too well. And of course, they gentrified everything. For 3 years and some change, there was massive amounts of old homes being torn down and hauled out, and the new ones being built up and sold. The HOA was built right in, because of course it was. Folks with money enough to throw down on crappily built homes that looked nice from the front moved in one by one and two by two. Property values in the area skyrocketed. Property taxes skyrocketed right along with them, and more or less, poor people were forced to sell because they got taxed out of their own homes. My wife and I knew what was coming from the get-go. We knew those dinguses from Totally Not Ryan Homes were going to come sniffing around our way, not to try and buy us out, but to see if they could finagle, smooze, or threaten us into joining the HOA they were installing. It was inevitable. Lots of information is public record. They knew we had money, they knew we were living below our means by 2 orders of magnitude, they knew we clearly meant to be exactly where we were because we sure didn't have to be. They knew they didn't have a snowflake's hope in hell of pricing us out on taxes, so they tried nagging us to death and coming right up to the line on harassment. Always to, quote, talk to us about joining the HOA. They failed. They got told by one expensive lawyer to find something else to do before we all got super busy helping them find things to worry about. And so they desisted for some years. Then my wife and I moved and got the property set up as a rental. Absolutely Not Ryan Homes starts bothering our tenants there, both trying to get them to pressure us into putting the property into the HOA, as well as getting our tenants riled up with the most outrageous lies about what could happen if we, the owners, don't protect our renters better. My wife and I were livid after hearing about this crap, and so we got a hold of Definitely Not Ryan Homes to let them know that this was our formal request that they stop bothering our tenants and that all further communications would be from our really expensive lawyer. They must have assumed we were bluffing, or maybe whoever was in charge of thinking that day didn't show up for work, because they just kept right on with their nonsense. It got so bad that they were even sending fake but convincing looking envelopes with eviction notice that, upon being opened, said could be what you find in your mailbox one day without our wondrous HOA, and containing information about the benefits of the HOA. We gathered it all up and got the tenants to talk to our lawyer and got the police involved to get the ball rolling on a harassment investigation. Another formal request to cease and desist was sent to Not Ryan Homes by the very expensive lawyer, which they utterly ignored. I think their guy that's supposed to come to work and think about things quit a long time ago. Maybe he never told anyone. Maybe nobody noticed. Whatever the situation was on their end, when my lawyer talked to their lawyer told my lawyer that their client was doing everything legally and that if we wanted to pursue the matter in court, that was what we'd have to do. So we did. I'm not sure what kind of lawyer magic my lawyer and his fellow legal demons worked on this front, but we were in court for 1 single hour when my lawyer and their 4 lawyers and the judge had a private talk after the preliminary hearing. A half hour later, and the lawyers from maybe Ryan Holmes come back into the courtroom looking like a quartet of cats that had been pissed on. My lawyer takes a seat beside me and says they're going to settle. And I was like, I didn't think we were that far along into this yet. What happened? And he said they built 51 homes in County of Concern over 2 years. Every single one of them was inspected before close of sale by a real estate agent that never actually got around to getting her home inspector license. And that was how It's Ryan Holmes the whole time paid me 10 grand to not sue them while they got bent over by the county and the state. This reminds me, a good friend of mine likes to tell people whenever they're having a bad experience with an HOA to just threaten to put up a 40-foot ham radio tower in their backyard. I haven't looked into the specifics, but apparently there's laws that allow you to have one subsidized, and if you're eligible to have one installed, nobody can stop you, not even the HOA. So next time the HOA says you can't build a new pool in your backyard or redo your lawn, you can just tell them, oh well, my second choice was to install a 40-foot ham radio tower, so I guess I'll just do that instead. Our next story comes from Plugged In But Dead. Yeah, F your laundry then. Background. I live in an apartment building with a backyard. Landlady has set up drying lines in one part of the backyard that were free to use. I live on the ground floor, and my apartment has direct access to the backyard. I work from home, so I'm almost always here every day. Now I have perfect view of the lines and can see if there are any clothes hanging on them. Sometimes a fellow resident will hang their clothes and either forget about them or be somewhere else when it's raining. So what I usually do is bring them in and leave them in a little waiting room we have in the building where they can easily find it. It's happened enough times that everyone already knows I'm the one doing it. A few weeks ago, one of the residents came to me and complained about how I handled her clothes. She said I laid them down on a dirty surface or rumpled them too much. They were just washed, of course there will be creases. She might have also insinuated that some pieces were missing. I don't cross-dress, nor do I have a fascination with other people's clothes. She ends her complaints with, I'd rather you not touch my clothes in any way. That's the first time someone complained to me about rescuing their freshly laundered clothes. Didn't think much about it until today. A few hours ago, I see her hanging clothes up to dry. Fast forward to now, I'm looking at them getting drenched from this awesome rain. She did tell me not to touch them. I'm currently working in front of the window, so I can see when she finally takes them. Maybe I'll give her a wave. Update. She finally took them some time ago and asked me why I didn't bring them in. I reminded her of her past conversation, and she called me a childish effer. I do feel a bit sorry, as some of the clothes were apparently her work uniforms, and I know she'll be working early tomorrow. Only just a bit sorry, though. I also just received a text from our landlady asking why she's pissed at me. Resident made a complaint. I told the landlady everything, and she also called me an effer, in a positive sense though. Said I shouldn't worry about it, as it doesn't violate any of the building's rules. Well, the landlady is right. There's no rule that you have to bring in your neighbor's clothes when it's raining. I just don't understand how the lady who told OP not to touch her clothes got so mad when he didn't bring them in. Like, you literally just told him, don't touch my clothes. If someone tells me not to do something, I don't do it. It's as simple as that. The third story comes from Pyro Stones. So you need a man's brain to do all that. Okay. First context. Since I, male 28, was 11, my parents were divorced. My mother, female 64, got custody, and we would see our father one weekend every 2 weeks. I also have a little sister, female 25, so I ended up being the only man in the house. Growing up, our mother always taught us that we needed to participate in house duties, such as washing the dishes, taking out the laundry, preparing food, etc. We would take turns, and during the week, us children would take care of all that because our mother would come back from work exhausted and expected to not have anything to do once she got home, and we kind of were okay with that. Only that as young children, we would sometimes often forget to do stuff, and it would cause a fight. but we ended up learning to not forget. However, there were some tasks that wouldn't be fairly distributed. My mother always needed a man close so that she could give him work to do, and even though she never remarried and only dated 1 or 2 men after she divorced, she always found some male friend or some friend's husband/boyfriend to whom she could ask for help, until people started to realize that she was only close with them so she could ask for help. Yeah, she's one of those tit for tat people where if she does something for you, you have to give back something equivalent or you disappear from her life. So basically she lost a few friends. But at some point, I was old enough to be useful, and she started asking me for help on these matters. OP, the internet box doesn't work anymore. Can you look it up? It needs a man's brain to understand that. OP, I bought some furniture from IKEA. Can you build it for me? It needs a man's brain to understand that. OP, can you carry luggage? Only a strong man can do that. OP, can you look up why my computer is being so slow? It needs a man's brain to understand that, and so on. I asked her repeatedly to look at how I dealt with these things so that she could understand herself and fix it alone next time, especially when it was something so basic as to restart the internet box. But she didn't want to learn. She just wanted me to do it because she didn't want to have to deal with it herself. And it went on for a few years, growing from just restarting the box to nailing things into walls so that she could hang mirrors and stuff. I had actually never done any of that before she started asking me to do it, so I guess it made me learn how to do it, which is a good thing. But what bothered me was that she didn't care and expected me to do all that because it was normal, and me knowing about it or not was not a question. I am a man, so that's my job. And as I was growing up and her still not learning anything, I got more and more frustrated, until this one time. I don't remember what specific task it was, where she told me that it was a man's job needing a man's brain. I made a huge sigh, did the job, and went back to my business. Cue the malicious compliance. As some tasks require a man's brain, it is obvious that some others will require a woman's touch, as we men are all about technique, big thinking, and strength work. So the following days, I started to wash the dishes and put them back anywhere in the kitchen, because you know, us men have no idea about what goes where in a house. We just fix things and carry heavy stuff. I forgot to get food back in the fridge because you know, that's already cooked, so it won't spoil. I overcooked my steaks, egg, pizza, because you know, I was so busy thinking about all the technique stuff that I didn't have the brain space to think about checking food. Laundry would be spread to dry, one piece onto another, because it is more efficient as it saves space. And about cleaning the house, let's just say it was a waste of time because I could perfectly live in my own mess. Of course, it didn't take long for my mother to get angry at me for not taking care of the house or for doing it so stupidly. To which I answered, sorry, I mean, you know, it needs a woman's brain to understand how to take care of a house correctly, which yes, is totally sexist, but so is saying that all the work she made me do was for men only. So at first, she was dumbfounded. Then, the storm unleashed. It still is one of the biggest fights we had to this day. Things calmed down, and I went back to caring properly, until she asked for my man's brain again. From this point, I stopped caring. I would forget the laundry in the washing machine, let the dishes pile up in the sink, and would only do my man's job. She still would get really angry, ordering me to do stuff, which I would ultimately do, completely halfway, meaning she had to do it all over after me, because half of the dishes were just out on the kitchen and not in their place. Laundry was all stuck together to dry, and so on. The mood in the house was tense, and it wouldn't need much for a fight to blow up, until at some point she asked me to help her do this or that, not to do it for her anymore. So I helped. I showed her how to do it, I took time for it, we did it together multiple times until she finally learned how to do it herself. I then started taking care of my duties as I did before, and things went back to normal. Finally. I am just glad the story had a happy ending. Nobody likes being taken advantage of, so I'm glad it all worked out. Now, regardless of if you're a man or a woman, it is your job to press the like button on this video if you enjoyed it. Jokes aside, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.